This is where we start to see more estrogen dominance because the first hormone to decline is going to be your progesterone. Your symptoms are a very real signal that something is going on in your body. It is asking for you to pay attention. We're not just going to mask that with some pills. That's not addressing the root cause. It stops you from feeling the symptoms, which is nice, but whatever is happening under the surface just keeps happening. And if this is going on, it leads to long-term effects where we're seeing like more inflammation, more cravings, more blood sugar issues, higher stress, all of these things that are detrimental for our health. And so we need to figure out, why is this happening? And again, most doctors don't test at the right time and they're like, hey, go test whenever. It doesn't give you the right picture. It's not enough information. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Metabolism and Menopause podcast, where we help you understand this new body of yours. Now that you've gone through some hormonal changes, or maybe you're past menopause, those traditional fat loss strategies just really aren't working anymore. So it is time to learn how to work with your body instead of against it so that you can unlock your fat burning pathways, have energy and confidence again. Today, we are talking all things estrogen dominance, the 5 main steps to help improve that, because a lot of women struggle with this. Once we turn 35, 40, that early perimenopause stage, which I talked about in a previous podcast, the 4 stages of perimenopause and menopause, this is where we start to see more estrogen dominance because the first hormone to decline is going to be your progesterone. This means you could still have low estrogen, but when progesterone starts to decline compared to estrogen, now we have this imbalance, which leads to estrogen dominance. And this will happen to pretty much everyone. And we also see that with estrogen, it's going to fluctuate up and down as it comes down. And so sometimes we're going to be really estrogen dominant, and it can lead to some really not fun symptoms like the bloating, the moodiness, the gaining weight. And so I want you to really understand what estrogen dominance is, what causes it, how can you spot it, and most importantly, how to get your estrogen levels into a better position to finally get you into that fat burning zone, because it can be really, really challenging when we start to experience this. It is easily one of the most common imbalances that we see, especially in women like mid to late 30s, 40s as well, even into our 50s. And it's associated with a lot of the symptoms that we start to experience, but we don't realize it's because of this, or we don't realize it's perimenopause and menopause, right? And it can make weight loss really challenging. So we are going to cover what it is and testing it, when you should test it, what to look for testing when we are doing this, symptoms, root causes, how it blocks your fat burning pathways, and then of course the 5 steps to help improve estrogen dominance so that we can open up those fat burning pathways and you can feel great. So part 1, what is estrogen dominance? By a functional medicine definition, it is going to be estrogen dominance is when there's just too much estrogen compared to progesterone. Again, you could have normal estrogen, you could have low estrogen, but if progesterone's too low, you are estrogen dominant. It is missed a lot in blood work because we see that blood work only measures your total estrogen levels. It doesn't check how it's being metabolized or if it's balanced out, what's being favored. Plus, if your cycle is still showing up, many doctors will dismiss your symptoms, even though this is going on under the surface. Most conventional doctors only test total estrogen, so your estridyl, your E2, and even that is often done on the wrong day of your cycle, or not at all, right? So estrogen dominance isn't always about how high your estrogen is. It's the ratio between estrogen and progesterone. And we want to test them at specific times in our cycle because where we are in our cycle is going to dictate how much estrogen or progesterone we have. And this is a huge, huge mistake that we see women's doing, just testing whenever, especially if you're regularly cycling. This makes a massive difference in what your results will show. So even if your estridyl looks normal on that lab result, if progesterone is too low, you're still estrogen dominant. Blood work won't reflect how your body is processing or clearing estrogen. So you might not even be producing that much estrogen. It could be that your body can't break it down. It's getting reabsorbed. We can't get it out of our body properly because our liver could be struggling. Our gut health could be struggling. Our detoxification pathways could be struggling. And a lot of the time, this is what we see when we're doing our Dutch testing. And so when should you test your estridyl if you are, doing your blood work? So days 3 to 5 of your cycle, you count day 1 as the first full day of your bleeding. And this window is going to show your baseline estrogen levels, your ovarian reserve, if it's tested alongside of your FSH, your LH, and your AMH. And it's going to help assess if your body is making enough estrogen in the follicular phase, so the first half of your cycle. If you are testing for estrogen dominance relative to progesterone, then we want to test on days 19 to 21 of your cycle, assuming you're on a 28 to 30 day cycle. If it's longer, we just bump that up. If it's shorter, we just bump it down. And this is your mid-luteal phase. And that is when progesterone should be high. If you're looking to see if estrogen is too high compared to progesterone. So if progesterone is low, which is very common when we're in this stage of our life, or if we're under a lot of stress from under eating, over exercising, cutting out carbs, doing tons of cardio, being go, 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 not sleeping enough, meeting deadlines, taking care of everybody else, everyday life, that's going to bring your estrogen down. Or your progesterone down. So even if your estrogen's testing normal, you're having that estrogen dominance that we talked about. So you want to test both estridiol and progesterone at that time to evaluate that ratio. And that's days 19 to 21 in blood work if you're on a 28 to 30 day cycle. And again, you'll just move up and down depending on your regular cycle length. To fully understand estrogen dominance, we want to look at free versus bound estrogen. So your sex hormone binding globulin is going to affect this. We want to look at your estrogen metabolites, which tells us if your body is breaking it down into protective or dangerous forms. So we have phase 1 and phase 2 detoxification that estrogen needs to go through for our body to get rid of it. Phase 1 breaks it up so then it can be packaged in phase 2 and taken out of the body. But when it's broken up, those forms of estrogen are more dangerous to our body. They can produce more inflammation. It can produce more cellular damage. We know that inflammation, when it's high, is going to block fat burning. It's going to increase your disease risk. It's going to increase diabetic risk, cancer risk. It's going to increase your cortisol levels. And so if we're doing phase 1 well, but we're not doing phase 2 well, then we're seeing that buildup of those harmful, estrogen metabolites that are going to cause harm to our body because we're not able to get rid of it. And this is why we like Dutch testing so much, because it shows us these things. So the problem is, we just need to improve phase 2 detox. So for that, for example, we're making sure we're getting enough proteins. We need specific amino acids to help support that phase of your liver detox. And so this is why just that number alone is not super helpful, because we don't know why is that number the way it is. That's what's really important here. To understand estrogen dominance, we also want to look at the progesterone levels during your luteal phase. Liver detoxification, like I just mentioned, this is really important. If our liver cannot break down and get rid of what we're using for that estrogen, right? If we can't get rid of it, that can be really harmful for our bodies. We know liver detoxification gets worse during perimenopause and menopause. It gets worse with stress. If you drink even a few glasses of wine a week, that's also going to impact it, right? Poor sleep. If we're not sleeping well, liver detoxification takes longer because it does most of the detoxification work in the nighttime. So from, I think it's 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. So if we're not sleeping well during that time, liver detox slows down. We're not seeing that estrogen get out of our body as well. Blood sugar is also going to affect this as well. So there's a lot of factors that we need to look at and see, why is this number the way it is, instead of just trying to supplement with stuff that may or may not work and may or may not be the problem, right? And then we also have to look at gut health, because when our hormones start to change, estrogen is going to drastically impact the climate in our gut through the estrobolome, so your gut bacteria, your gut microbiome. And so that changes. And when our gut microbiome changes, we can see more leaky gut type symptoms. We can see more inflammation. And what happens with that is that then things go through our gut lining that's not supposed to go through our gut lining. And then it gets to our liver. So we're putting more effort and impact on our liver than it needs to. And then that's overburdening it, making this whole process a lot harder, when realistically, the things in our gut should just be staying in our gut and eliminated. And so we're seeing a lot of more toxins and things go through that aren't supposed to, making everything much harder on our liver. And so we need to look at your gut health, your liver detoxification, your detoxification pathways, your progesterone, your estrogen. Is it being broken down well? Yes or no? Where is it struggling? What's being favored? Why isn't progesterone coming up? There's a lot of things that we need to look at to determine, why are you estrogen dominant? And a lot of people will just get put on birth control to deal with symptoms, which will make you more estrogen dominant in the long run. So then when you come off birth control, you feel like you got hit by a truck, especially if you're pairing it with a time like perimenopause. So standard labs do not test all those things, obviously. They can give you like an inclination at first, right? But we can't see why this is happening, which is why we like the functional Dutch testing or a comprehensive hormone panel to give a deeper insight. And this stuff starts to happen a lot more in your 30s and 50s, like I mentioned, because those progesterone levels are going to decline first. Estrogen doesn't decline until later. So we're going to naturally have that imbalance. And so we need to do whatever we can to support progesterone production and support estrogen detoxification and just detoxification, lowering inflammation in our body in general to help support this so you don't feel freaking insane. Because again, we don't want that estrogen being reabsorbed. Not a good place to be. So what are some symptoms? Because everyone's like, okay, this sounds like a big deal, right? What you've said makes sense. What are the symptoms of estrogen dominance? Well, if you've ever said things like, I feel like a swollen balloon before my period, or I get really irrational moody for no reason, that could be estrogen dominance. So some of the symptoms that we include are bloating and water retention, especially in the lower belly and legs. Everyone's like, oh, me. Yes. Heavy periods, clotting, spotting, mood swings, anxiety, irritability, breast tenderness, fat gain on the hips and thighs despite the fact that you're eating well, low libido, brain fog, fatigue, that low energy, insomnia if you're waking up between 2 and 3 a.m., headaches, especially around ovulation or your period, fibroids, cysts, endometriosis, PMS that feels out of control. And a lot of these symptoms are just normalized. They're like, oh, you're just PMSing. Oh, it's just perimenopause. Or worse, it's just all in your head. You're fine. Your labs are normal, right? Your symptoms are a very real signal that something is going on in your body. It is asking for you to pay attention. So when people don't take your symptoms seriously, that's not okay. We need to find different practitioners because everything that your body is experiencing, the symptoms that you're experiencing are a clue as to what is going on under the surface. And like, we're not just going to mask that with some pills. We need to figure out why, because you put the pill on, birth control, whatever they do for you, right? And that's not addressing the root cause. It stops you from feeling the symptoms, which is nice, but whatever is happening under the surface just keeps happening and keeps happening and keeps happening. And if this is going on, it leads to, long-term effects where we're seeing like more inflammation, more increased risk of cancer diagnosis, right? We're seeing more cravings, more blood sugar issues, higher stress, muscle loss, all of these things that are detrimental for our health. And so we need to figure out, why is this happening? So root causes of estrogen dominance, the first one is obviously going to be low progesterone. And so this is going to be like partially an age-related decline, right? It can happen as early as your mid-30s. Ovulation becomes less consistent even if you're having a regular cycle. You can also have anovulatory cycles where you ovulate and there's no progesterone production. And then we also see chronic stress is massive because we have this thing called like the progesterone steal or the pregnenolone steal. It doesn't actually steal it, but in stress, like when we have high cortisol levels, progesterone cannot be produced. It is almost impossible because our body's prioritizing other things. And when progesterone goes down, we struggle with sleep. We don't feel very calm. We don't feel very chill. We don't feel very relaxed. That's what progesterone does. So we feel insane, right? And so that chronic stress comes from dieting multiple times, eating low calorie for too long, cutting carbs for too long. We are fasting for too long or too often. Like fasting's supposed to have a start date and a stop date. It's not meant to be a lifestyle. It can be from the types of foods that you're eating. It can be from lack of sleep, too much exercise, or exercising the wrong way, or not exercising at all, being overly sedentary. It can be from, stress and trauma and deadlines and dealing with your kids and trying to manage a business and your career, but also trying to have a relationship with your spouse and, all the things that happen. And so we are constantly in this state of stress, but we're not fueling our body appropriately. So then progesterone goes down and we start seeing this crazy symptoms and cycles start to occur. And estrogen and progesterone really work like a yin and yang. They are, when progesterone drops, estrogen takes over, even if it hasn't increased. And this creates that classic sign of estrogen dominance that we're talking about, the PMS, the heavy periods, the bloating, the anxiety, without actually testing with high levels of estrogen, right? And again, most doctors don't test at the right time. They don't tell you, hey, test between this time and this time of your cycle. They just give you a rec and they're like, hey, go test whenever. That's not right. It doesn't give you the whole picture. It doesn't give you the right picture. It's not enough information. And it can give you false positives, false negatives, right? So that's a really big issue. The next cause is that poor estrogen detoxification we talked about, the phase 1 and the phase 2 of our detox. And if either one is sluggish from, alcohol, from highly processed sugars, not carbs, we actually need carbohydrates, but, donuts and candy and sodas and chips, low fiber diets, poor nutritional intake. There's even some like genetic variations like COMT or MTHFR. Estrogen's going to end up building up, and it's not broken down properly, or it's broken down to the more inflammatory types. And this matters because poor detoxification means estrogen recirculates, it builds up, worsens PMS symptoms, water retention, fibroids, mood swings. This is why a lot of women will start HRT and they won't feel any better. They'll feel like crap because your liver is actually the problem. Like, you can give yourself more hormones, but if your body cannot break it down and it gets broken down in the liver, you get all this buildup. You get now excess hormones that you didn't need before. Your symptoms get worse. You see more inflammation. You see more weight gain. So this is a very big, crucial part that so many coaches and just people in general forget about, where liver detoxification and hormone health, they go together. Liver health will have such a massive impact on this. And we have a whole podcast on liver coming out soon, which I'm really excited for you guys to be able to listen to. It's a longer one, but I think it's very important that every woman needs to hear and understand. And then we also see the gut is going to play a big role, right? We want to make sure that we are eliminating everything. We don't want to have that dysbiosis, that imbalance of our gut microbiome. We don't want to see constipation. If you're not pooping every single day, you are constipated. You should be going a couple times a day. That helps get rid of all those excess toxins. It helps get rid of extra hormones. And so if you're not pooping daily, that can be a huge reason as to why you're struggling with estrogen dominant type symptoms and even weight gain. And so again, even if our liver is working magically, if we can't get it out of our body, it doesn't matter. It gets reabsorbed from our colon and goes back to the liver again, which is a massive stress on your body. Then we have exposure to xenoestrogens. We are surrounded by so many chemicals these days, right? And a lot of them are actually going to mimic estrogen in our body. These are called xenoestrogens, and they bind to estrogen receptors, amplifying estrogenic activity. And we'll find these in like plastics, so water bottles, food containers. This is why we want to make sure that we are never warming up food in plastic, that we are always having leftovers in like ceramic, or we're cooking in like stainless steel, putting them in like glass containers, those kinds of things. Fragrances, so like perfumes, we're talking candles, cleaning products, all of those things, pesticides, nonstick cookware, receipts, birth control, all of those things are going to act like xenoestrogens. And so we can't replace all of those things, right? But it's about limiting exposure where we can. So we switched out our plastic cutting boards for bamboo. We switched from nonstick cookware to stainless steel. We switched all of our plastic containers to glass, and we've been doing this slowly. As we finish different cleaning products, we look for cleaner ones. I like using the EWG website, and you can put in, like, you can look up different products to see what the rating is, but you can also just search like laundry detergent, and it'll give you the less toxic ones to help support this. So even if your body isn't making that many estrogens, the environment can trick your body into thinking it has lots of estrogen. And so then it acts like that. And so if we're already in a sensitive state where we're already overstressed, this is a thing. So if you're someone who is really sensitive to scents, liver, xenoestrogens, and potentially estrogen dominance is a big key in that. So that's a big sign that, hey, I might actually be struggling with this. The next one that people don't think about is high insulin and blood sugar imbalances. Eating too many donuts and chips and candy and chocolate, also skipping your meals, being in a chronic stress state can spike your blood sugar and insulin levels over time, which is not good. So even if you're fasting, cutting carbs, and eating low calorie, if you are in a stress state, your body goes, oh, I need energy to meet demands. Even if you're just sitting here scrolling, right? Right now for me, I made sure I had a nice big breakfast before this because I am quote unquote on. I don't feel stressed, but my body has increased demand because I'm giving a lot of energy, right? And so whether that's mental energy, whether that's scrolling on social media and something's like negative and I get kind of worked up about it, you don't have to feel stressed. But when you are on, your body is perceiving that as a stress. When that happens, if you have not eaten, if you have been fasting, if you are cutting carbs, if you are eating too low calorie, your body will dump sugar into your bloodstream to meet that demand. That's what cortisol does. And so when that happens, your blood sugar goes up, despite the fact that you haven't eaten anything and you haven't eaten any carbs. And so now insulin needs to come up to help bring the sugars into the bloodstream. And then it drops again. And then if you don't eat, it comes up again. And so what happens is we have this cycle of high cortisol, dumping sugar in, insulin comes up, blood sugar comes down, boom, cortisol goes up. And this cycle keeps going and going and going. And cortisol is going to win every single time. Cortisol will work and win every single time. And this can actually cause you to become insulin resistant. We see this all of the time, especially in people who do keto for too long, who do carnivore for too long. They are not meant to be lifestyles. We need to have diet variation, and everything and every diet has a purpose. And so we need to understand, what are you doing? Why? How is it affecting your body today? How is it going to affect your body long-term? And is it conducive to where you want to be long-term? Because the answer is usually no, right? We implement certain things for a certain reason. And so what we're seeing is the under-eating, over-exercising, cutting carbs, fasting, skipping meals, plus the high stress life that we live in is causing this insulin resistance. We see this in women all of the time. And so we need to make sure that we are not doing that, because if we become insulin resistant, guess what? Our body gets stuck in this storing pathway. It tells your body we have enough, let's store, despite the fact that you're cutting calories, cutting carbs, you're fasting, you're doing all the exercise, right? So we need to understand more broadly how this actually happens, because a lot of people do things and follow it blindly without actually understanding what it has done to your body. And over time, that's going to lead to fat gain, particularly in the hips, thighs, and your midsection. It increases something called aromatase enzymes, which converts testosterone to estrogen, which can actually lead to estrogen dominance, right? We have poor ovulation, which leads to lower progesterone. We have higher cortisol. We have worse blood sugar control. We see more inflammation, worse energy, lower thyroid function. All of those things are going to push you into fat storage, but also it's going to push you into estrogen dominance as well by suppressing your sex hormone binding globulin, which normally binds excess estrogen, which is going to then, since it's not doing that to help get rid of it, it's just floating around in your body, all this excess estrogen, worsening inflammation, making everything so much harder, especially if you're trying to lose weight. So as you can see, it is not a calories in, calories out problem. It is not a here, take this pill and it solves the problem. There is so much more involved, like the blood sugar, the detoxification, the estrogen, the xenoestrogens, your gut health, your low progesterone, right? It is not just a calories in, calories out thing. And this is where it drives me insane, because it's not that simple. If we lived in a bubble, yes, the laws of thermodynamics apply, but there are so many other factors. And this is why people are like, I tried this and I tried that and it didn't work, or it worked for a bit and then I gained it back. It's because it's not as simple as that, especially as our hormones start to change. I mean, think of all the hormone changes we go through. We go through puberty. That was insane. And then we went through pregnancy, right? And then postpartum and perimenopause. Like, there is so much that happens to our hormones. It's naive to think that that's not going to have an impact on how we feel, how our body looks, how it operates. And so it's not that simple. So let's talk about specifically how estrogen blocks your fat loss, your fat burning pathways. And then again, what are the things that you can start implementing today to improve this? So estrogen dominance is going to push you into the fat storing pathway, and it's going to overstimulate your fat burning pathway, that mTOR pathway. And it's going to have an underactive fat burning pathway, which is your AMPK pathway. So basically it blocks fat burning and overstimulates that storage pathway. It does this by raising insulin levels, which will increase fat storage and you'll see less fat burning. It's going to slow down your thyroid. Your thyroid tells your body how many calories to burn, so we see less calories burned. If your body's not good at burning calories, it makes weight loss really hard and weight gain very easy, right? And so low thyroid function, when metabolism slows down, when our body's not good at burning calories, that means it's not good at using food for energy. So it sits there longer, which increases inflammation, but also it takes longer for the cells to almost like recharge like a little battery, which is why you feel freaking tired all the time, is because things are so slow. We see leptin resistance. Your brain doesn't know that you're full, and it's never telling your body, hey, we have enough. We can start burning what we have. Instead, the signal that you're getting is we have enough, let's store. You don't want that signal, because if your body is constantly being told we have enough, let's store, even if you're cutting calories, even if you're cutting carbs, even if you're fasting and you're doing all the workouts and you're doing all the right things, if your body is constantly being told we have enough, let's store, it's never going to respond. And this is why we need to address these things. We know that it's also going to impair your liver and your gut health, more toxin buildup, more inflammation, boom, blocks your fat burning pathway, solidifying the we have enough, let's store signal. Your mood and motivation drops. So we know that estrogen is going to affect your dopamine, which is like motivation, serotonin, which is your happy hormone, and GABA, which helps you feel like relaxed and helps you sleep and recover. This leads to more cravings. It leads to sadness, emotional eating, low motivation. That's not a place that we want to be. And so it's like you're driving with one foot on the gas and one foot on the brake at the same time. Your body wants to burn fat, but your hormones and everything that's happening underneath the surface literally won't let it. But what most of us do is we try to push on the gas brake harder, when in reality, all we got to do is ease up on the brake and boom, there we go, right? But so many of us are just trying to push and push and push and push. It's not going to matter. And what's going to happen is the car is going to break down. That's not going to work for you, right? So what can we do about it? Number one is we need to focus on rebuilding progesterone naturally. We want to have enough progesterone to match that estrogen, right? So we want to prioritize sleep and stress management. This is massive. If we are not doing this, you're going to have one heck of a time trying to get your progesterone back up. I know my estrogen was in the postmenopausal range as early as my 20s. It was not a good place. It took me a very long time to get my hormones to where I want it to be able to even have a family. We want to make sure that we are eating enough carbs and enough calories to support ovulation. You need carbohydrates to ovulate. Ovulate equals progesterone. So low carb diets, not good for hormone health. Yes, we need to have some fats in there because cholesterol is going to help produce hormones as well. But carbohydrates are also incredibly important. We want to make sure that we are having enough magnesium. We are having enough vitamin B6 and zinc in our diets as well. I typically recommend supplementing with magnesium and a vitamin B50. Make sure you take the vitamin B in the morning because it improves your energy. If you take it at nighttime, you will really struggle to fall asleep. Magnesium at nighttime will help you sleep, so take it in the evening. You can consider bioidentical progesterone cream, obviously with practitioner guidance. I'm very excited to be able to offer this to clients right away, which is super exciting, with lab testing as well, paired with our Dutch testing. It's going to be fantastic. And then, of course, you can take adaptogens too, so things like ashwagandha. But again, you want to remember that supplements are supplemental. If you are not eating enough, if you are not sleeping enough, if you are not doing stress management, you are going to be very hard pressed to see these changes. If you followed me on social media, you see that I share my Oura Ring stats very often. When I am podcasting and stuff, my stress is rated very high. How do I get my stress down so my cortisol comes down, which allows my hormones to improve, to bring down bloating, to bring down inflammation? I do feet up and deep breathing a couple times a day. So I will do 4 seconds in, hold for 4 seconds, out for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, and do that for 2 to 3 minutes. You can take 2 to 3 minutes out of your day for your health. I promise your kids want you to do that so that you can be here for longer. And then doing feet up, I'll lay on the floor, feet up on the wall. So I'm making like an L shape, and that helps bring blood flow from the legs back to the gut, which will help with digestion and decreasing bloating, which is awesome, which means less inflammation, which equals easier ability to burn fat, which is great. But also it's going to help bring your heart rate and breathing rate down to lower your cortisol levels, to get you out of fight or flight, get you into that rest and digest, to also then help support your progesterone levels. So that's number one, improving progesterone. Step number 2, we want to make sure that we are detoxing estrogen safely. So we want to make sure that our liver is actually being able to go through phase 1 and phase 2 detox, breaking down estrogens, packaging them up, and then setting them away to get eliminated, right? So things that help with this are cruciferous veggies. You should be having these at least once a day. This is a huge game changer. It helped me so much because my liver markers were not great. So we are really working hard on that, which makes sense for the symptoms and things that I've been having. And so having broccoli, arugula, cabbage, kale, those kinds of things daily, very, very key for helping support your liver. Very simple thing to add into your diet. We want to make sure that we are supporting methylation, which is the process of breaking things down. So making sure that we're having enough folate, B6, B12, and magnesium in our diets. Again, very simple to supplement with. You can add in milk thistle, NAC, dandelion root. Dandelion root is amazing. This is something that I'm putting in my tea most days. Of course, the odd day I'm going to forget, but that helps with liver detoxification a ton. And then also limit alcohol, which I know sucks, but if you're someone who's struggling with this, just cut it out for 4 weeks and see how you're feeling. It'll make a massive difference to allow your body to recover. And then also limiting exposure to toxins that are going to burden that liver. So when we're talking about that, we're talking about the switch from plastic to glass and stainless steel, right? We're talking about decreasing our food intake from fast food restaurants, because we know there's more phthalates and plastics in those food because of the packaging and processing that it goes through, which is, again, just one reason. There's lots of other reasons that fast food isn't the great, right? But that's a big one. Just decreasing your exposure, paying attention to your cleaning products, your makeup, your hair products, all of those things. Then we want to make sure that we are healing the gut. Because again, if the liver is working well, but we're not able to get rid of it, doesn't matter, it gets reabsorbed. So this is where fiber, having 25 to 30 grams per day, is super important. Increase slowly. If you are at 6 grams right now and you jump up to 35, I promise you will not poop for like a week and it will be terrible. We need to increase it slowly. Fiber is hard to break down. It takes a lot of energy. If your gut's not used to it, not super great place to be. And so we want to increase that slowly, and also increasing our water intake at the same time. Those fibers need to come from whole foods. So if you are tracking on something like MyFitnessPal and you go to click on the calories consumed at the top, and then you click on nutrients, it will show you grams of protein, carbs, fat, fiber. If you click on the fiber button of how many grams you've had, it will show you on a different screen your top sources of fiber. Your fiber should predominantly be coming from your fruits, your veggies, things like potatoes, oats, your whole grains. Like a solid whole grain bread is fantastic. They should not be coming from things like your protein bars. They should not be coming from your low carb keto wraps and keto breads, because those are pumped full of fake fibers that can actually cause more digestive distress. We want most of our fiber to be coming from natural whole foods. We want to prioritize bowel movements regularly. The fiber, eating your cruciferous veggies, hydrating, that's all going to help with that, but also regular movement throughout your day. So not just the workout that you do once a day or every few days a week. We want to make sure that we are getting up and getting some movement to help get things moving. Including pro and prebiotic foods. Prebiotic foods only come from carbohydrates. This is why they are so important for your gut health. And then, of course, we have to address any underlying food sensitivities, SIBO, low stomach acid, those kinds of things if they're present. But again, that's things that we got to test for, right? When we are talking about limiting exposure to our liver, I already talked a little bit about this, but the xenoestrogens, that was glass and stainless steel containers, using fragrant-free or EWG verified products, eating organic or pasture-raised whenever possible. That's not always possible, right? So making sure you're cleaning your fruits and veggies, avoid heating up in plastic, drinking from plastic bottles if you can, even tea bags, right? They were coming in like plastic. So where you can, try and buy loose leaf tea. I have a mix of both. Sometimes I use bagged teas. I use it for my dandelion root. Sometimes I use my loose leaf green tea, right? So again, it's just reducing exposure where you can. You don't have to be super extreme, because that's not realistic for a lot of people. The next one is also blood sugar control. This is number 5. This is so important. When we are looking at our meal, order of eating is one of the biggest changes that you can make that will make a massive improvement on your blood sugar control by not even having to change the composition of the meal that much. You want to eat most of your protein and veggies first before dipping into your carbohydrates. So if I'm having, meat and potatoes and a salad, I'm going to have part of my meat and salad first, and then I'll dip into my potatoes. If I am having a sandwich, I'm not going to break that apart. I'm not going to break apart a wrap. I'm going to have some veggies and dip first, maybe a hard-boiled egg with some cheese, maybe a side salad first. Anything that's going to have some protein or high fiber before dipping into my my carbohydrates, right? You never want to have carbs on its own. So if you can, for your snacks, we're looking mostly at like fat and protein, maybe some fruit in there, maybe some veggies, right? But you never want to have like a donut by itself. You want to have those things right after a meal if you can to help stabilize those blood sugars. You're never having them on their own. If I want to have a couple of Oreos, what can I add to help stabilize my blood sugars? Okay, maybe I'm having a little bit of yogurt first and then I'm having my couple of Oreos. Maybe I'm having some nuts and, strawberries and then I'm having my couple Oreos. Maybe it's like cheese and some pickles and then I'm having some Oreos. Like, what can you add first to help stabilize your blood sugars? It doesn't have to be super complicated. Make it super simple. Walking after meals helps blood sugar control a ton. So just going for a 5-10 minute walk after you've eaten is great. Stop fasting and skipping meals, especially if you're struggling with energy. This is a sign that blood sugar regulation is not good. If you are struggling with low blood sugar, that is just like, okay, we're working our way to becoming insulin resistant. We need to support our blood sugar control. And then adding strength training. We want to be building muscle. Muscle makes us more insulin sensitive and helps with inflammation, mitochondrial health, energy. It helps us have shorter hospital stays, better recovery times from surgeries, fewer complications in surgeries, lower risk of osteoporotic fractures. Like, there are so many benefits to having more muscle, and blood sugar control is just one of them. And the sixth thing that you can do is consider hormone testing. Dutch testing is one of my favorites. You can do some blood testing. Just make sure that you are doing it at the right time. If you want cortisol checked, blood testing is garbage for that. It gives you one point in time. We don't know if cortisol is high or low when it's supposed to be. Like, if I would have taken my blood testing in the morning for cortisol, I would have been fine. But then when I looked, it just stayed high all flipping day. And my body was good at producing it, but not super good at clearing it. And so I needed to reduce, how much I'm producing, but I also need to make my body better at breaking it down. This is where improving my liver health was such a big portion of my healing journey. And so Dutch testing can be super eye-opening. That is something we do offer. So if you have questions on that, please message me. I'm always happy to send that over. But considering getting some testing done, it just helps you get to skip stuff. We're not guessing. Like, you get to know exactly what's going on. Why is this happening? How do I address the root cause? Boom, done. We have a plan and you're good to go, right? It's because otherwise it's just, you feel like you're spinning your tires. You're doing all the things and you feel like, I should be seeing changes. I feel like I should be improving. Why isn't this working? And all it is that you're just not doing what's actually going to help you because you don't know why it's happening. What we need is more answers, not random solutions. We need answers so you can get the right solution. So you don't have to live in this like trapped, bloated, moody, exhausted body. You don't need to cut more calories. You don't have to do more cardio. We just need to fix what's actually blocking your fat burning pathways, why your estrogen dominance is a thing. And this is something that unfortunately we see in a lot of young women as well. Like, if someone is dealing with a lot of PMS type symptoms, it's typically going to have to do with estrogen dominance. But what's the solution for most people? Doctors just give you birth control, and it makes everything worse, especially if you're on it super long term. I can't tell you how many of us on our team, birth control messed us up and it took a long time to come back from. And so understanding more about how your body works, being able to share that with other women in your life is so important, because then we all get to be here for longer. And that's what we want. Like, my mom, she had fibroids. She had to have a surgery for that. She had all these other health issues. She ended up passing away from cancer really suddenly, and she was healthy. She ate well, she was active, but there were all these underlying things that I'm like, man, if I wish I would have known more and had access to the information and testing and everything that we have now, because I would have given anything for her to be at my wedding. I would have given anything for her to meet my husband, to meet my son, to be here for all those things. And so, yes, the symptoms suck, but they're trying to tell you something. They are trying to make you aware, because otherwise, if we keep just treating the symptoms, all the crap keeps happening under the surface and you don't know what that can develop to one day. The amount of inflammation that comes from estrogen dominance is insane and can lead to preventable chronic conditions that are taking women way too soon. And so that is why we are doing what we are doing here. I just want to share the information with you. If you have questions, please reach out. If you have specific topics you want us to talk about, please comment below. Let us know, because I want to help you in every capacity that we can. I love you so much, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.